Hi, I'm Bjarki Kaikomo. In this video, we're going to be looking at microphones. A microphone is a transducer. Transducer simply means something that changes one form of energy into another. A loudspeaker is also a transducer, and you can think of it as a microphone in reverse. There are three basic types of microphones that we use in a typical recording session: dynamic, condenser, and ribbon mics. Dynamics include, for instance, the well-known Shure SM58 vocal mic. They are simple in design and usually handle loud sources well. Condensers are more sensitive and have a flatter frequency response, meaning they pick up more low and high-end sounds than dynamics can. They have more electronics inside and require power to work. This power is delivered in the mic cable and is called phantom power. This is usually 48 volts and can be turned on at the preamp or mixing board. Dynamics do not need phantom power, and it doesn't damage them if it's turned on. They simply ignore it. So if condensers need power, but dynamics ignore it, then why have a switch at all? That's because there's a mic design called a ribbon mic. Phantom power can damage them, so make sure it's turned off before plugging one in. Ribbons have a different design to dynamics and condensers in that they have a thin strip of corrugated aluminum foil to pick up sound rather than a diaphragm. A diaphragm is a thin membrane that vibrates with sound, much like a drum skin. All mics have what is called a polar pattern, or how they pick up sound depending on which direction it's coming from. In which direction the mic is listening, in other words. There are three main ones: omni, cardioid, and figure of 8. It's best to think of these as where the mic is not listening. The most basic pattern is omni and picks up sound all around it in a spherical fashion. Next up is cardioid. Cardioid is the most common polar pattern and can be found on all dynamic vocal microphones, for instance. It rejects sound coming in from the sides and especially from the back. A figure of 8 rejects or ignores sounds coming in from either side, so the pattern looks like the number 8. Almost all ribbon mics are figure of 8. It's mono, in effect an omni with the sides removed. There are also variations of these polar patterns, for instance supercardioid and hypercardioid, which can be found on microphones used in film and TV productions. It's worth noting the direction the mic should be pointed, either called side address or front address. Almost all dynamics and small diaphragm condensers are front address, and large diaphragm condensers and ribbons side address, usually with the logo side facing the sound source. All cardioids and figure of 8s have what is called the proximity effect. This simply means that the closer a sound is to the diaphragm, the more the low end will be boosted. Omnis do not have this effect. Let's look at some common microphones, starting with dynamics. The Shure SM58, a dynamic cardioid mic and the most widely used vocal mic for live use in the world. Its cousin, the Shure SM57, also a dynamic cardioid. A workhorse used on guitar cabinets, snares, tom-toms, and anything really. AKG D112, a modern version of the classic D12. A large diaphragm dynamic designed for bass drum, but also useful on bass cabinets. Shure Beta 52, Shure's version of the D112. Sennheiser MD421, made for speech, but also excellent on snares and guitar cabinets. It's front address, even though it might look like a side address one. Shure SM7, originally designed for radio, but also good for vocals, and has very good side rejection. Electro Voice RE20, similar to the SM57, and also used on bass drum and bass cabinets. Now on to condensers, starting with the large diaphragm ones. First up is the Neumann U47. Invented in the 1940s, it has an internal tube and an external power supply. Since then, this mic has been used on countless recordings and is highly regarded. Neumann U87. the mother of all studio microphones on all kinds of instruments, and a go-to mic for voice. AKG C414, a multipolar pattern workhorse that works well on acoustic instruments, as well as a stereo pair for orchestral recordings and in other stereo applications. Neumann TLM-103, a bright-sounding cardioid and a prime choice for acoustic instruments. Sennheiser MKH series, small diaphragm pencil mics, useful on overheads, on percussion, acoustic guitars, and even for film use. Neumann KM series. The KM84 and its successor, the KM184, are cardioids, and like most small diaphragm condensers, are good on percussive sources and a regular sight in studios. There are, of course, other specialized microphones like lavaliers and shotgun mics, but they are all based on the same principles and technologies.